Hello, my wonderful friends. Let's get excited about division today. Before we begin, I want you to make sure that you have all of your necessary supplies. Make sure that you have not only your assignment up on your computer so that you can solve the problems along with me, but also some scrap paper or your math notebook and a pencil. The best way to learn from a math video is to solve the problems while I work them or take notes while I'm writing. So when I'm writing, you should be writing. When you upload your work to Kami, make sure you include a photo of your notes so that I can see what you wrote down or what you drew while you were watching the video. Let's start by making sure we understand the vocabulary we need to know in order to solve a division problem. Which number is the dividend? Remember, the dividend is the large number that needs to be split up or shared. That's right, 586 is the dividend. 2 is your divisor. And your quotient is going to go up on top. That's your answer. Copy that down. Division is the same thing as repeated subtraction. That's what I want you to keep repeating to yourself while you're practicing these division problems. Division is repeated subtraction, just like multiplication is repeated addition. Now, on the video on the Envision site that you watched, that you've already watched, notice I'm emphasizing that you have already watched the video on the Envision site. They show you how to make a tape diagram to model these division problems. So when you're making a tape diagram, you just draw a long rectangle. It looks like a strip of tape. And this represents your dividend. So I'm going to label this 586. And we're going to figure out how many groups of 2 can fit into that 586. So 2, that's our divisor. We're figuring out how many groups of 2 we can make. And on the video on the Envision site, they told you, let's represent the total number of groups of 2 with the letter N. That represents our unknown, what we're trying to figure out. Okay? So copy this down. We're trying to figure out how many groups of 2 can we make with 586. Whoops, spelling. How many groups of 2? Why won't it let me erase? Okay, so the steps to our division process are: first, divide; second, multiply; third, subtract; fourth, compare and bring down. Copy that down, please. So we're going to start with 5 divided by 2, which is another way of saying how many groups of 2 can go into 5. Well, I know that 2 groups of 2 can go into 5, so that would be like drawing another group of 2 up here for a total of 4. So divide, multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. Next, subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Now compare. We're going to compare the 1 that we have left over here and just make sure that it's smaller than our divisor. If when you subtract your number is bigger than your divisor, it means that you could fit 1 more group of 2 in your quotient, and so you need to kind of go back and redo something. Okay, but this is smaller than our divisor, so we're good to go ahead and bring down. I always like to draw an arrow to make sure that I bring down my digit and line it up. Next we're going to, so we compared We brought down. Now we're going to loop back up to the top and divide again. How many times does 2 go into 18? Or another way of saying that would be like 18 divided by 2. Well, that will give me exactly 9, so that's easy. Okay, now I'm going to multiply. 9 times 2 is 18. So I'm going to write down 18 here. This is a partial quotient, 18. Next, I need to subtract. 18 minus 18 is 0. 0 is, of course, less than 2, so that's my comparing. Now I'm going to bring down my 6. Now my last step is divide one more time. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Multiply 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract. And I have no remainder. Okay, so my quotient is 293. So I'm going to write that up here, 293, which means n, my mystery number, is 293. 586 divided by 2 is 293. What's happening? Okay, our next problem is 565 divided by 3. So let's go ahead and draw our tape diagram because that's a helpful way to visualize or make a picture in your mind. And it kind of helps you like organize the problem in your mind. So our dividend is 565 and our divisor is 3. We need to figure out how many groups of 3 we can fit into 565, probably with none left over. I'm thinking that on this practice sheet, you guys will probably not have remainders. So n, our unknown, what we're trying to figure out is how many total groups of 3 we can fit into 565. So let's go ahead and divide. Let me use a different color. I think that'll be easier. Dividend, 565. Divisor is 3. And our steps are, of course, divide, multiply, subtract, compare, and bring down. Okay, now I think of these problems as being kind of like hopscotch because you kind of have to hop around in this weird pattern in order to solve it. Let's start with 5 divided by 3. How many groups of 3 can go into 5? Just 1. 1, so that's our divide. 1 times 3 is 3. That's our multiply. Now we subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 is smaller than our divisor, so I can continue on and bring down my 6. How many times does 3 go into 26? So I'm looping back up to the top. I'm going to divide. Let's see. 3 goes into 26. 3 times 8 is 24. Okay, so that's our divide. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract. 26 minus 24 is 2. Ooh, this one we do have a remainder. Compare, yes, I did that. Bring down the 5. How many times does 3 go into 25? 8. 8 times 3 is 24. I have a remainder of 1. Now, in 5th grade, you need to know that there's different ways you can represent your quotient if it has a remainder. You can write it R1. You can also write it as a fraction. The numerator will be your remainder, 1, and the denominator will be your divisor, which is 3. So 565 divided by 3 is 188 1/3. Okay, we're actually going to skip down to the word problems because these are the most important thing, I think, for you to start getting a handle for before your topic test next week. Your topic 4 test is 20 word problems. So, I mean, that's quite a bit. And the most important thing that I think that you kind of need to practice with word problems is understanding what your answer is going to represent in the context of the problem. So let's start with our tape diagram. And the first thing we learn is that the Paez family lives in Louisville, Kentucky, and has decided to take a road trip for their summer vacation. How many miles will the Paez family drive each day if they decide to take 5 days to drive the 865 miles to Dallas? So it's usually easy in these problems to figure out what your dividend is going to be. It's going to be your large number that you're splitting up or sharing. And it tells us that they're going to take 5 days to do the drive. So really, I would draw this tape diagram a little differently. Tell me if this makes sense to you. Since they're going to take 5 days to do the whole drive, I would actually divide the miles up into 5 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this line here represents your 5 days, and then what you're trying to figure out is how many miles do they need to drive each day. So that's like this little section here is your N. How many miles are they going to drive each day? And I think it's important to write down for each problem what your unknown is, what your N is, what you're trying to figure out. Once you've done that, then you can go ahead and start dividing. So I'm going to take my 865, divide it into 5 days, and here are your steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, compare, and bring down. So what you need to do is you need to pause the video and go ahead and try to work the problem and then compare what you did with what I'm about to demonstrate. Let's begin. What is 8 divided by 5? Meaning how many groups of 5 can fit into that 8? 1. Now we're going to multiply. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3, and then we just need to make sure 3 is less than our divisor, and it is. Bring down your 6. How many groups of 5 can go into 36? Whoops, 7, not 6. 7 times 5 is 35. Subtract. 1 is less than 5. Bring down your 5. How many times does 5 go into 15? 3 times 5 is 15, so for this one I have no remainder. So they will drive 173 miles each day. Okay, number 2 asks us to think about if this family decides they want to drive 1,254 miles to Boston in 6 days, how many miles will they drive each day? So now our total, or our dividend, is 1,000 254 miles, and they're going to split that distance up and do the drive in 6 days. So we're going to divide 1,254 by 6 days, and our n, our unknown, is how many miles they will drive each day. So remember, the best way to learn from a math video is to pause the video, try to solve the problem yourself, and then unpause it and compare your work with what I show you on the video. Remember, your steps are divide, multiply, subtract, compare, and then bring down. So for this first step, our divisor starts with a 1, and we can't divide 6 into 1 without getting a fraction or a decimal. So we're going to go ahead and just look at 12 to start with. How many times does 6 go into 12? 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract. 12 minus 12 is 0. Bring down the 5. Now again, we can't divide 6 into 5 without getting a fraction or a decimal. That would be like saying if I have $5 and I want to share that $5 with 6 of my friends, everybody would get less than $1 whole. So we can't do that. So I'm going to put a 0 here as a placeholder and then bring down my 4. Now I can go ahead and continue dividing. 54 divided by 6 is 9. 9 times 6 is 54. Subtract, and I have no remainder for this problem. So 1,254 miles divided by 6 days is 209 miles each day. So at the beginning, when we defined n, that was our unknown number, right? Which in algebra we call our variable. N represents how many miles will they drive each day. So in this case, n equals 209. Okay, here we go with our last word problem. Now for this one, I want to pull in some of the skills that you worked on Envisions last week, where we estimated quotients. The purpose of estimating what your answer might be, or your quotient, is to give you a sense of whether or not your answer makes sense. So let's go ahead and try that with this problem. If a staff of 9 people had to clean a hotel with 198 rooms, how many rooms would each person have to clean if they divided the rooms equally? So imagine 9 people working in the hotel, and they're each going to have to clean a certain number of rooms, and the total is 198. So we've got to divide up those rooms fairly so that no one has more work to do than anyone else. So 198 is our dividend, and we're going to divide that by 9. And before I begin, I want to come up with an estimate that I think will be close to my exact answer. Now, one way that you can come up with an estimate is by rounding to the nearest 10 or the nearest 100, and then divide. Or you can also try to come up with compatible numbers, meaning numbers in the same fact family, and divide that way. No one strategy for estimation is better than another, except in the sense that the closer you can get your estimate to the exact answer, the more useful the estimate probably will be. So one thing you can do is take your 198 and round that to 200. Take your 9 people and round that to, say, 10 people, and then we can say, okay, each staff person will have about 20 rooms to clean. And that way, if our answer is way, way, way far away from 20, we know we've made a mistake somewhere. Another thing you can do is take 198 and round that to down to 180. These are compatible numbers. I know that 18 divided by 9 is 2, which means that 180 divided by 9 is going to be 20. So again, I've got about 20 rooms that they have to clean. If I'm way far away from that, I know I've made a mistake. So 29 is choice A. I'm going to predict that those two answer choices are not going to be correct because those are pretty far away from my estimate. I'm thinking that my exact answer is going to be either C or D. That's my prediction. Okay, so let me go ahead and divide. 9 goes into 1 0 times. I can't do that. That would be like saying, oh, I have $1 and I want to share it with 9 of my closest friends. Well, no, because my friends don't each want less than 10 cents. So we're going to look at 19 instead. 9 goes into 19 2 times. So that's our division. Next, we're going to multiply. 2 times 9 is 18. Next, I'm going to subtract. 19 minus 18 is 1. I'm going to compare next. 1 is smaller than 9, so I know I'm good there. And last, I'm going to bring down my 8. How many times does 9 go into 18? 2. 2 times 9 is 18. So that's my multiplication. Subtract. I have no remainder. So each staff person is going to have to clean, whoops, sorry, let me do that again. Each staff person is going to have to clean 22 rooms, so that's choice D. Remember that when you're turning in this assignment, you will not get full credit if you just answer the questions. You must upload a photo of your work, meaning your division that is going to look like this. For the other problems, I want to see your tape diagram. I want to see some written work to go with this assignment. Nice job, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions.